Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Trueish podcast. I'm once again joined by my good friend James Boisits, the host of the JB podcast. James, how's it going?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Unfortunately, my team's not in the playoffs, but it's okay.
Yeah, but you knew that for
Yours
a while.
is
You knew that for a
you're
while, right?
yeah. We had like a 5 year streak or something.
Well, we're going to go through the playoff seedings as the NBA regular season ended yesterday. We're going to discuss the most highly anticipated first round series and the oncoming series after that. It was a wild end to the season, wasn't it? I mean, it came down to the last day for a lot of teams, including the New York Knicks, who were able to snag the second seed. There were so many teams jockeying for position, even in the West as well. The number one seed was up for grabs up until yesterday.
Yeah, I think a huge shocker is the Thunder and what they did, and that they're the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, considering how young they are, considering that like their trade deadline acquisition of Gordon Hayward isn't like this massive thing. I think it's very impressive, and we always knew their coach was good. And in fact, during their times when they were tanking and stuff, like they had moments where they literally had to just sit everybody because like they were winning, like or they were doing
Mm,
too well to start the season. And Shea is clearly like he's here, like he's that guy. I mean, I think he's definitely going to be considered to be the MVP this year, considering what their record is, considering he's the best player. Um, I know some people differ on that, but he's definitely going to be considered. I just that was the biggest shocker to me to see the Thunder get the one seed because I thought Denver kind of had it locked up. But then Victor Wembanyama went nuts, and then they lost to the Spurs, and then this happened.
yeah, that loss to the Spurs on Friday night, that kind of ruined it for them. I mean, I don't think they
They were up
expected that.
20.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
Wembanyama and the Spurs, who, despite, how bad they were this season, I think they showed, that Wemby especially, that he is, as advertised, which was kind of crazy. Uh,
probably more, honestly. Like I think he had a share fair of doubters. Um, and he was healthy, and you just pray and knock on wood that that continues.
yeah.
I mean, as far as like the other surprise, I mean, we'll get to them, but like the Knicks, big surprise, two seed. I mean, I even like I liked the OG Anunoby trade for them, and like I didn't think they'd be this good with him. I mean, he clearly just opens up everything for Brunson, and Brunson's been playing out of his mind in the last month. But it's important sometimes, and I know you're gonna be roll your eyes because I just mentioned the Knicks, but it's important like I think with teams such as like Dallas, Minnesota's bad loss to Phoenix. Phoenix is 7-3 to close their games. Um, it's important to kind of try to find a balance between teams that ended the year hot and teams that didn't.
Mhm.
Like I'm not gonna freak out that Denver's not the one seed. I'm not gonna freak out that Phoenix went 7-3 in their last 10. I'm not gonna freak out on this Dallas thing and the Clippers even, and we'll get to them later. But yeah, it's important to kind of find a balance there.
Yeah. So let's start in the West because I think the West was nuts. I mean, 10 teams in the West finished 10 games over 500. First time
Yeah,
that's ever happened.
yeah,
Uh, and it's times like this where why they implemented the play-in, not so much the case in the East with
yeah.
Atlanta and Chicago are like several games under 500,
Mhm.
but they'll be seeing the playoffs. So we have the play-in games in the Western Conference coming up on Tuesday. We'll have the 7-8 matchup, which is the Lakers and the Pelicans. The Pelicans dropped out from the 6th seed,
Mhm.
losing to the Lakers on Sunday. The Lakers moving up to 7.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, to 8, and the Pelicans dropped to 7th. Then we have Sacramento and Golden State as the 9-10 matchup. Sacramento did not finish the season well. I
Not
mean,
at all.
they had a playoff spot earlier, like a couple weeks ago, and they are now down to the 9th seed. So they're going to be
Yeah.
playing for their playoff lives against a team that they have not had a lot of success with, obviously, with the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, with them, it's kind of like they have home court. They're going to be that, the Kings fan base is really great. It was really good even with the Warriors last year. But you don't want to play Steph Curry in a one and done. You just don't, especially when things aren't going well for your team. And clearly the Monk injury has bothered them. And
Yeah.
I just think they're trending downwards, and they've been trending downwards for a while. And I thought the Kings were due for a step back this year anyway. Last year they were kind of one of the healthiest teams in the league, so part of that seeding was just they were just durable and they were talented. This year it's kind of the same exact team, and Monk's hurt. I believe Fox was hurt for a bit.
Hmm.
Like now, like their record is good. It's now it's a 9 seed. It's
Yeah,
that's what it
exactly.
is. They have 46 or 45 wins. Forget.
I think 40,
Um,
46.
46. That's not too far off from last year. I don't think. They
No.
didn't win like 50 games last year. I think they won, was it 48, something like that? I
Yeah,
could
they were
double
it was
check
more
that,
they
but
more or less had the
it
same
was
team.
around like the same amount. And I was just, I think in that game, are we doing predictions for the plan? Like
I mean, why not?
let's do it right now. So like I have my playing games for the Western Conference, which are by far the most interesting games. The East, I think, is more interesting from the 7-8 matchup, and
Yeah.
kind of like if there's a possibility one of those teams doesn't make it. I think that's the only like thing intriguing because the 9-10 game is oof.
Jeez.
So I kind of am happy like the Nets didn't make the play in at number 10, because then I would be hearing like who cares about that game, and then it would hurt my feelings a little bit. But yeah, as far as the West playing games, Pels Lakers, which I have the Lakers. And I know like they probably would rather play Oklahoma City, but Denver, but in a one and done, you don't want to mess with that.
No,
So
I see a
you
lot of people on Twitter talking about that. I
it's
saw
like, all right, in a perfect world, you could that's ridiculous. You know
yeah,
what I
but
mean?
like if you lose that, if you say, oh, let's like if you rest AD for example because he hurt his back on Sunday, well, he's probably gonna play, but say if you rested him and then you lose to the Pelicans in that 7-8 game and you get the winner of Sacramento Golden State.
Yeah.
Sacramento they haven't beat at all this season, and Golden
Mhm.
State, Steph Curry, you just never know.
Yeah,
You don't want to do that and
you
miss
don't
the
want to do it.
playoffs. Exactly.
It's almost a situation like if you lose the Pelicans game, but you win the next game, it's like, all right,
Yeah.
listen,
You
it's
know,
not too bad. We'll live with the
exactly.
results. We'll be fine. But you try to win this Pelicans game. I don't trust the Pelicans at all.
Mm.
I'm telling you, I've been saying this all year. They're Atlanta Hawks, obviously a better version of them, but they're like an Atlanta Hawks West to me.
That's
Zion,
funny.
he's never played a postseason game in his life. Obviously, the Pelicans have won in the play-in before, but just LeBron, AD, the Lakers are really hot right now, and I think it's legitimate. Like, I actually think the Lakers roster is talented. You know what I mean? I've kind of been underwhelmed with them all year. Like, they're finally playing like up to their potential. So I think the Lakers take care of them, and the Lakers are going to be a tough matchup to Denver, and we'll get to that later. And as far as the 9-10, Kings Warriors, I have Warriors winning that, and I have the Warriors beating the Pelicans
Ooh.
because I trust Steph Curry more than I trust any other of the Pelicans
Mm.
or the Kings. So I'm going with the Warriors and Warriors Thunder series that has potential to either be good or not so good.
Mm. So we were on the same page up until you chose the Warriors over the Pelicans. I think the
Mhm.
Pelicans, I think they match up very well with the Warriors. They have size, which has always been the Warriors' problem.
Mhm.
And they also have the ability to match them shooting wise. The Pelicans, that's
Mhm.
one of their things. If they get hot from three, they can really beat you and really beat you quickly. Uh, the Warriors, man, like all season, they didn't, it looks because of the West because they're the 10th seed. They finished 10 games above 500. That's not a
Yeah.
bad season.
Mhm.
But it's just because they ended up 10th. I just think sometimes you don't know what you're going to get from the rest of these guys, and they've been playing better recently. They played the Pelicans recently and they lost, but they're kind of similar in the way that the Pelicans, to me, when I watch them, I'm never sure who's going to be the guy that they go to. They were playing without Ingram for a little while, and they looked better because it was clear. It was like, all right, we're going to go through Zion. CJ McCollum's going to run the point, and he's been shooting crazy from three recently. And then they got Ingram back for that Laker game, and it looked like the same thing where we're not really sure exactly what we're going to do. And then before you know it, they're down, and they just rely on the shooting. The Warriors to me are the same way. We know Curry, but it's like, is Clay, is he going to start? Is he going to play well? Is Wiggins going to play well? Uh, who from their bench? Chris Paul, Gary Payton. Who is going to be Podziemski, the rookie? Who's going to be the guy that helps us? So in a playing game, it's really random to me. I don't know who I would take in that situation. I agree. I think they beat the Kings just because they got something over the Kings, and I just don't like the way the Kings have been playing recently. Sabonis has had a great year. Fox, for the most part, has had a good year, but he spent some time hurt. The Malik Monk injury hurts. I thought they should have upgraded from Harrison Barnes in the offseason. They had a chance. They had money. They decided just to bring him back. And there's games where he's just a complete non-factor, and I think that really hurts them
Hmm.
offensively. And then, of course, defensively, they just don't do it. It's just
Yeah.
not something they're great at. They don't have
Yeah.
the personnel for it.
Hmm.
And I do like the Lakers over the Pelicans. They've blown them out 3 times this season,
Hmm.
like outright. And they did so the other night. That'd be my only worry, that they just played the Pelicans and now they got to play them again, like in a series. And maybe
Hmm.
the Pelicans come in with some adjustments. We know Darvin Ham, not great at adjustments.
Hmm.
And the AD back injury does worry me a little bit with his mobility and how much he's going to be a factor on defense. But that's my only difference with you. I got Golden State missing the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think with these playing games, when it comes down to one game, like we've seen Steph have a great year. What was it, 21, I think. He had a great year and they were an eighth seed and they lost both playing games and they missed the playoffs. So we've seen it. We've
Mm.
seen him lose, and I'm just judging off and they're going to be on the road in both games, kind of, right? Because those Warriors fans like to
Yeah.
travel.
They're not
And
as bad on the road this year as they were last year. Last year was something different. I don't know
yeah,
why they
last
were
year
so
was
bad
something
on the road.
different, but this year, that Pelicans crowd, I think, because I think they're going to beat the Kings.
Hmm.
That Pelicans crowd. It's the only thing, by the way, that the Kings have going for them, I think. Like
Oh
that
yeah, that
crowd will be crazy for them.
100%.
There'll be Warrior fans, no doubt, but we saw it last year. Like they'll be into it. Um, Especially because that's the only team Sacramento like they have and all that. Obviously it's California, but and then like in the Pels game, I expect that to be a lot of Warrior fans at that game. Personally, that's what I think. And I think I just don't trust Zion in like the postseason yet. We need to see. We need
Yeah.
to see him go against that scouting. I mean, Draymond is a head case, but as long as he doesn't get himself ejected, maybe
That's a
which is
big. That's a
on the
big.
table.
That's a big if.
But yeah,
Yeah.
those are just mine. Either way, I have these teams. I don't want to spoil 7-2, but either way, I have eight losing in the first round, I think.
To Oklahoma City.
Unless the Lakers lose the first and win the second,
Mm,
I still have OKC beating Pelicans or Warriors or
hmm.
Kings. But the Lakers, I don't think I would actually. As far as the East playing goes, we could just talk about that real quick and then we'll get into the real stuff.
Yep.
The East playing Sixers Heat. I have the Sixers. I think the Sixers. By the way, do you know what the difference is between the 2 seed and 7 seed for wins? It's three in the
In the
East.
East, yeah.
So Philly's people are like, oh, Philly's a 7 seed and the Knicks are two. It's like
It's a 3 game. It's like
it's
it's
3 wins.
a 3-win difference. Yeah.
And considering Philly was basically the second best team in the East when Embiid was healthy and Embiid was
Hmm.
the MVP, even with a compromised Embiid where he's not playing at his best, he's still the best player in a lot of these games. And he's
Yeah.
still going to get to the free throw line. His presence helps out everybody else. And they got Nick Nurse, which is a massive difference between him and Doc Rivers, in my opinion. So I think Philly takes care of Miami rather easily. It may be a little close, but I just think Philly's a better team than Miami. And then Hawks, Bulls, who really cares about them? One, I have the Bulls, but it's a coin flip. I have the Bulls. I don't know who you have, but I have the Bulls. And then Bulls Heat rematch would be really fun. I could see the Bulls making it interesting, but I got Miami. So I got Miami 8, Philly 7.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I mean, you look at the plan. I feel like maybe I'm crazy. I thought I could have swore when they put this in that they said like there could be like it could be conditional. Like if the 9-10 finish so far from 7-8 that they shouldn't like get a chance. Because like
Mm.
Chicago is 7 games back of Miami. They're
Yeah.
they're let me see.
Hmm.
They're 4 or 5 games below 500. Like
Hmm.
is there really a realistic chance that Chicago or Atlanta is going to beat Philly, especially, or Miami? I don't think
Well,
so.
in one game, I think
You never know, right?
you never
That's
know.
kind of
I
the
can't see
aspect.
Atlanta really doing it. Chicago, I can. If Atlanta had Trae Young, I could see it. I could see Trae Young getting hot in a game or two, and then it changes.
I think
But
Trey
is
Young
that
came back,
good?
didn't he?
Is
I
Trae
think
Young back?
yeah, I think he did.
Well, I am. I do not care.
I
You
mean,
don't. You don't even have to cut this out. I
no,
just
I don't
assumed he
agree.
was done. And all right. Well,
I mean,
I still have my predictions. Either way, these teams are losing.
something interesting with the Hawks when
Well,
in
because they were gonna think about trading him in the summer, right? That was the thing.
yeah, that's who knows which one they decide they could trade. But Dejounte Murray without Trey Young with the Hawks in the games that they played without Trey Young, they were 500.
Hmm.
When Trey played without Dejounte, they were 500. In
Hmm.
games that they played together, they only won 40% of their games.
Yeah.
So obviously, shows something just doesn't work, but with both of them playing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they're an okay team when one plays without the other, but
Mm.
together they're you know a
Which
team who
I
should
knew
be in the
from the
playoffs.
start. I didn't like the trade from the start. And surprisingly, like Atlanta was shocked. Positions matter.
Yeah,
I'm seeing Nets fans talk about, I don't, always bring about the Nets, but,
it's all right.
you know, I saw them talking about Donovan Mitchell and Zach LaVine together. And I'm like, guys, the positions
What?
matter. I mean, just look at Phoenix. I don't trust them because to me, you need a point guard there.
Yeah.
You know, it matters. The positions matter. And just look at Phoenix this whole year. They've struggled to maintain any fluidity and consistency. So I know that team still has a lot of wins, but I'm just giving them as an example. Positions matter. So with the Hawks with Trey on DeJounte Murray, that's 2 point guards, and both of them, like Trey, like he shoots a high volume, but he's not like an elite shooter.
Yeah.
He just shoots a lot of threes and he can make them. And DeJounte Murray's not a great shooter. He's a mid-range shooter. And even Quinn Snyder, who's a good coach, it's like they can't figure out what's wrong there. And that's why I think this is a perfect segue into because we're going to talk about in the second half of this, what did the teams that missed the postseason need to do?
Hmm.
Atlanta needs to get rid of everybody.
Everybody
Like,
they keep Jalen
I think
Johnson.
I'm telling you, they got to get rid. Oh, okay.
They
Yeah.
can
All
keep
right. Fine.
Jalen
Fine.
Johnson.
They can keep Jalen Johnson. Thank you.
He's had a good season. He's been really
Yes.
good.
Keep anybody but there's so many players like Hunter, like he just wasn't what you thought he was going to be. Bogdanovich, like why is he still on the team? Like these guys are just, you know what I mean?
Why is he still on the team? Clint
Bogdanovich is
Capella
good
is
at
another one.
times.
Like,
It's just like it's clear this group doesn't have it. And they were
right.
hoping that Snyder would be the one that would get him. I still think he keeps Snyder. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
Trey Young's future is seriously in doubt because I still think you can get value for him, and I don't know if his value increases after this year. Um,
Mm.
so we'll see. I think you get rid of Murray too. I think you just get rid of it,
Fire sale. Get rid of
and it's
everybody.
tough because you could have Luca, but you
Could
have
have had
Trey Young.
Luca. Could have had Luca.
So, but yeah, and then Chicago, like I honestly think Chicago's gonna bring everybody back.
Yeah, that's because, and I'm afraid they do that just because, like, you know what? We need to see it one more time with Lonzo, and the hope is that Lonzo comes back
Yeah,
next season, and they want to see what it looks like.
they shouldn't do it, but I think they're gonna bring people
Yeah,
back. DeRozan's a free agent, but who wants DeRozan? Who's going out and signing DeRozan with their cap space? Who's Philly?
I mean, Philly
I think
probably will
Philly's
have
more
their
into Paul
eyes.
George.
Yeah, and Paul George.
Yeah. I don't think that it's gonna be. I don't know where DeRozan goes. I think Chicago's perfectly fine with being mediocre. Kobe White's been good for them. It's nice to see Kobe White.
Finally, yeah.
And you know what? Maybe they look at it like, hey, when Lonzo was playing, and they haven't had Zach LaVine,
Right.
right? Hey, when Lonzo's playing, we're a really good team. They were the best team in the Eastern Conference in a half season sample. and they were fun to watch and they were really good. And then Lonzo got hurt, and I think he's actually really important for that team. So I think the future of Billy Donovan's in question. I actually think it would be worse if they made the playoffs because I feel like
Give him some
they'd
false
be like,
sense of
"Hey,
yeah,
we made the
exactly.
playoffs. We don't have Zach LaVine or Lonzo.
Oh man.
Vucevic has been bad." It's just like it's a disaster of a team, honestly, and it sucks because like they're an iconic brand, like the Chicago Bulls. Like
Hmm.
everyone knows the Chicago Bulls, and they had that run with Tibbs and Rose, but other than that, nothing. I think the Heat, it's a disaster if the Heat miss the playoffs. I think
I
they really
mean,
need to go all in on Donovan Mitchell if they miss the postseason. I think they should go in all in on Donovan Mitchell no matter what, honestly. And Philly, I think Embiid's future, major question if they miss the postseason. What do you think?
for sure. I mean that's that's the
Squeaker.
conversations, right? That Joel Embiid wants to win. He's
Hmm.
an MVP caliber player, and there's been multiple iterations of this Sixers team now. We had the Ben Simmons Sixers teams with Embiid, Harden
Hmm.
Sixers teams with Embiid that Harden didn't work out. And now you have this kind of new version where Maxi's kind of that second guy.
Hmm.
And Maxi's been great. Probably
Yeah.
going to win the most improved player. Um, and they got Nick Nurse, better head coach than they've had previously.
Hmm.
Um, and if you may look at it as, oh, if Embiid doesn't get hurt, maybe we don't have our season, derailed a little bit.
Hmm.
Because they're probably the second seed in the East. If he doesn't get hurt, I don't think they
Yeah.
ever catch Boston. And
Hmm.
with the way the Bucks ended the season, dropping from second to third, Philly probably would have been in a great position to maybe make a deep run and make the conference finals, especially if you would get to avoid Boston till the conference finals.
Hmm.
And that's not the case now. Now they gotta kind of climb the ladder, play this playing game. They're gonna be playing us if they win their first playing game, which is gonna be a very, very good series, given
Yeah. And we'll get to that.
the stars in that series. Yeah.
Philly has a path, even if they miss the postseason. They have a path to keep Embiid, but they got
Hmm.
to be aggressive. Like if they get Paul George there, and it's like all of a sudden we're like, hey, we got Paul George, Maxey, Nick Nurse, and Embiid with some good role players. That could be very interesting.
Hmm.
And then the West teams, if they miss the plan, just real quickly, Golden State, I think, cleans a lot of what they do if
Man,
they miss the postseason. I think Sacramento stays relatively the same. I think they run it back, maybe make a few little tweaks. Because it's not like their season's been a disaster. It's just they're just
no.
not as healthy, and they're still young, and Sabonis is still really good. Um, Lakers, if they miss
Oof.
it,
Oof.
you'll see a lot of changes there, I think, because you got great years, healthy years from Davis and LeBron, and if you don't make the playoffs, that's whew, like that could be crazy. And then the Pelicans, I think the future of Zion's in question, and that's what I'll say there. I think they make a couple tweaks, but I think the Pelican situation looks interesting as well.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you full percent.
All right.
So let's look at these matchups that we're gonna have in the first round. Uh, we'll start in the East since we've already mentioned a little bit of Philly and New
Mhm.
York. Boston's gonna play whoever ends up at the eighth, so it could be Miami, could be off chance it's Chicago or something like that. Regardless, I think Boston probably walks over whoever they play in the first series. Um,
I don't think they walk over Philly.
okay, if it's not if oh yeah, okay, if
And I
it's
don't
Philly,
know if
yeah.
I don't know if they walk over Miami. I think that
Yeah.
depends. I think you got to at least keep an eye.
It's all because of somehow
I
Miami,
know.
they made the finals last year as the eighth,
Yeah.
and you just really never know because for whatever
But
reason, once the playoffs start,
mhm.
they start looking like a different team, like just
Yeah.
so
But
weird.
Boston is so like they're so much better than last year.
Right? Yeah.
Like they're just so much better. They're big. They shoot threes. I guess the only way I could see a Miami beating them in the first round, um, Philly's a little different because it's like they're not really a traditional seven seed. So if Miami's been a playing team all year, like they
Yeah.
deserve to be there. Um, you need Jimmy Butler to be incredible. Um, and then like a big reason why they got past the Bucks last year is the health of Giannis. Like Giannis missed a decent amount of that series,
First 3 games.
which it's going to happen again this year for the Bucks. Um, if I'm looking at Miami, I'm like, this is a playing game. Like I gotta win. Like to me, whoever wins this playing game between Miami and Philly has a path to the Eastern Conference Finals if they take care of the Knicks in the first round. Like they have a path because you don't know that the health of Milwaukee, and then it's Indiana. One of those teams is going to the second round.
Yeah,
And I think whoever wins the first round between the 2-7 has a real shot to go to the conference finals, like somewhat easily, in my opinion. Unless Giannis comes back and he's a beast. But even with Giannis, I think the
I
Bucks have
mean,
major holes. So it's like, okay,
sure.
Celtics Heat, um, you got to keep an eye on it. I have the Boston Celtics moving on.
Yeah, I mean that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Now we talked about the 2-7, which is going to be New York and possibly Philly, possibly Miami. That's a lot interesting because one, I don't know if anyone expected the Knicks to be able to sustain the winning that we saw, especially in the new year once they made the OG trade. When Randall went down, and then they started missing OG Anunoby as well, and Mitch was out for a big chunk of the season. He's kind of still out, even though he came back for a game or two. Um, New York, I mean, it's just incredible. Just personally, from a fan perspective, this team rallying to the complete Tibbs style. This is a Tibbs team up and down. They play hard. We got guys playing 48 minutes a night. we got, and then Brunson's had just an incredible season. I mean, I honestly think he should make first team All NBA. I think he makes that fifth spot. I mean, I think everyone agrees it should be Jokic, um, Luca, Shy. I'm forgetting a name. Giannis, and then that
Mm.
fifth guy is someone. It could be Tatum, could be Anthony Edwards, could be Brunson. I think Brunson deserves that fifth spot. I think he's been
Definitely consideration.
definitely consideration.
Like I don't think you're losing sleep if like, all right, Tatum got it. I mean, he's on
Yeah,
the best
I
team
would
in
understand why
the
Tatum would
NBA.
get it. He's on the best team in the NBA, and they kind of,
Yeah.
they were pushing that MVP conversation for him earlier in the season, even though it was
Yeah.
ridiculous. So if he gets that spot, so be it. But you could definitely make the argument that Jalen Brunson could be first team All NBA. He was 30 points a game, 7 assists since Randall went down at the end of January. 6 30-point games, 6 30-point and 10 assist games on the season, which is the most in Knicks history. 36 30-point games. And then he had
Mhm.
11 40-point games. And, we were missing almost 3 starters for a large stretch of the season. In that series, though, we were talking about it. I think OG Anunoby and Josh Hart, they're going to be really big for us. If they show up the way they've been playing the past few weeks, I think we have a very good chance of beating Philly or Miami for that matter. And then, of course, DiVincenzo, who's had one of the best 3-point shooting seasons, the best 3-point shooting season in Knicks history, most 3-pointers made by a Knicks player. And he's had a incredible 286 threes, I think he made this season, which is like 14th most all time. Obviously, Curry's had several seasons of more of that. But if we play the way we've been playing the past couple weeks, where we're able to make this charge, win our last 5 games to get the the second seed away from Milwaukee, I think we have a good chance of beating the Sixers. It's gonna be tough though. Obviously, with Embiid coming back, it's gonna help Maxey. Tobias Harris played better when Embiid was there. He's kind of up and down when he's like really
I kind of
relied
forgot he
upon.
was on the team.
Because there's nights where he doesn't make an impact. He's just you don't
Yeah.
even forget he's out there. But then there's some nights where he puts up 20 points and he's a big deal. He makes a couple threes. But I think this is going to be a really tough series. I could see a 6 or 7 game series, just because of Embiid and how it's going to be very difficult for us to slow him down, keep him off the free throw line. We know the way he's officiated. However you feel about it, he's going to get to the free throw line. He's going to shoot 8 to 10, 12 free throws a game. It's going to be tough. But I like the Knicks' chances in winning this series.
I think this series, all right, if it's Knicks Heat, it's so funny to me. Would you rather play the Heat or the Sixers?
I'd rather play the Sixers. And I've seen
Really?
other, Knicks fans on Twitter talk about this too. There's like a thing we have with the Miami Heat. Every time we play the Miami Heat, someone gets hurt on our team.
Yeah.
Hart turned his ankle in a game against the Heat earlier. Obviously,
Mhm.
Randall, Jaime Jaquez Jr. tried to take a charge. He goes up, he comes down, dislocates his shoulder, which they kind of strung us along. They kind of made us think he was going to come back. I think he did really try to come back. There's a way to come back without surgery, but the problem is that dislocated shoulders, even if you get the strength back in it, it's very easy to re-dislocate it. and then if you tear your labrum, like you're out for a lot longer. So unfortunately, Randall wasn't able to come back. But again, that was a game against the Heat. We played them last season, and it was a really tough series um, that we ended up losing in six. Philly, to me, one, I question how healthy Joel Embiid is. He rested the last game of the season. They were already kind of locked into where they were going to be. So they didn't play him because they didn't really need to. They said it was precautionary. But coming back from that meniscus injury, and then he like went out in a game earlier this week, that's worrisome for the Sixers. And I think an opportunity maybe for us when we're playing the Sixers, hopefully, not hopefully, but if he's compromised, that's an easier matchup than Miami, who turns into this like unbeatable team almost in the playoffs, with Spoelstra, and then Duncan Robinson turns into Klay Thompson. Just weird things happen when you play the Miami Heat in the playoffs, and that'd be the
Yeah.
only my only fear for Boston if they when they play Miami. Boston's weird late game execution. You're playing a team that's been there and done that with a coach that's obviously gone to NBA Finals and won championships. I think I just like Philly. We handled them very well during the regular season. Beat them 3 out of 4 times, and beat only played in 2 of those games. Um, but I just like our style of play against Philly instead of the style of Miami, because Miami can kind of match the grit and grind, the slow
Mhm.
pace. They can kind of
Yeah.
match that. Philly likes to play fast, likes to, kind of running gun offense. I think we contrast that very well compared to Miami.
Hmm. Well, the Nets swept the Miami Heat in 2014 in the regular season and lost to them in 5 games in the playoffs. So I'm just letting you know, like sometimes the regular season is hard to like,
Right, right. That is true.
especially with the Knicks because the Knicks made a trade deadline acquisition and the Sixers had Embiid out a lot of the year. And so here's how I look at it. If it's Knicks Heat, I expect the Knicks to actually take care of them. I don't think the Heat do this miracle run again. I don't. I just it's hard to replicate that.
We've
You know
heard
what I
that
mean?
before.
It's just hard to replicate it. I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
what in history an eighth seed going to beating the one or the seventh seed beating the two times in a row? I mean, whatever. It could happen. I just don't like what I've seen from Miami this year. But you always got to keep them back in the line because of the ridiculous run they went on last year.
The Terry Rozier trade didn't work out, I think, the way they had
It's
hoped.
it's another Miami Heat move.
Yeah.
It's like another like he's not a star, he's not a starter. Like is you know
He's
what I
been a
mean? But
starter because, the
been a
Hornets.
starter, but like he's just a role player that is hit or miss. And you know what? He could go crazy and like he could just go nuts. And hypothetically, it was a nice move, but it actually hurts their Mitchell thing because I think they gave up a first for him. So, yeah. But as far as the Knicks Sixers, if it's Knicks Sixers, which is what I believe it will be,
Mhm.
who has the better coach between the Knicks and the Sixers? Tom Thibodeau or Nick Nurse? Now, Tom Thibodeau has done a really good job this year, but Nick Nurse as a champion isn't champion. He's consistently in the postseason usually, minus last year
Yeah.
and the COVID year.
Yeah. It's
Who's the
hard
better
to,
coach between
hard
Nick
to,
Nurse and Tom Thibodeau?
I mean, I don't think it's like a huge gap, but
No, it's not a huge gap,
no,
but who's the
but
better coach?
it's definitely, I think it's Nick Nurse.
I think it's Nick Nurse too. Mainly because I just think Nick Nurse, like in the playoffs, is just a better coach. Personally, I think he's proven it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
okay, so there's that. Um, who's the best player in the series if Embiid is healthy? Now that's a question mark. But if Embiid
Hmm.
is even slightly compromised, who's the better player? Jalen Brunson, Joel Embiid.
I would say Embiid.
I would say Embiid as well.
The only thing I would say is we've
Mhm.
seen Embiid come up short, like
Yes.
individually, his performance in the playoffs before.
Yes, and it's mostly due to injury, and it's because and he's hurt. He's clearly not 100%,
That's a possibility now.
but he's still really good.
Yeah. But that's something you can't say about Brunson. Brunson has always showed up in the playoffs.
No, exactly. And that's I think something the Knicks have going for them. But hypothetically, Embiid is a better player. As much
Mhm.
as Knicks fans may want to like disagree with that, and
Right.
there are, and I have another question after this. Um, who's the better second best player? Tyrese Maxey or OG Anunoby?
That'll be Tyrese Maxey. I mean,
Be
that's
Tyrese
that's not
Maxey.
close.
So Philly could be going into this series with possibly. This is all like possibly, obviously you got to
Mhm.
play the games.
Yeah.
The margins aren't huge. They could be coming into this with a crowd themselves. Philly's got a crowd themselves. And in fact, a lot of them may travel to the Garden.
It's
And
not
there'll
far.
probably be Knick fans that travel to Philly as well. I'm just saying, like, as far as crowd wise, I think there isn't like usually the Knicks would have an advantage there. I don't know if they have an advantage because it's Philly, who's also a great sports town. You know what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
have their buzz. So you could possibly go into the series with the best player in the series, the best coach in the series, and the best second best player in the series. And usually that team wins, which is why I'm going with the 76ers in a Knicks Sixers series. And I'm sorry, and I know Knicks fans will hate me. If the Knicks were the 3 seed, I'd feel differently, but they're not.
Playing Indiana.
They're If they were playing Indiana, I'd have the Knicks in that series easily. And if they went to the second round, they would be playing the winner of a Philly, Milwaukee, and Embiid could be hurt and compromised by then. But in the first round, Embiid usually like in the second round starts having issues. The first round is usually
Mhm.
fine, even if he's banged up. But the second round there's an issue. So I'm going with Philly over the Knicks, and it's going to be a great series. And I don't feel great about it, but I think that's an upset, possibly. Knicks have played great. And I wanted to ask you this. Are the Knicks better without Julius Randle? And is Julius Randle the most disrespected star in New York right now? Because I actually think he is.
I honestly do think he is. I think this time with him hurt, there was stretches where we were just really hard pressed for offense,
Hmm.
and you can see the difference uh when he was playing for the few weeks after the OG Anunoby trade to then afterwards when we didn't have him and it was kind of just all on Brunson. Now the last month and a half, Brunson just went on just a stupid run where and then other guys, Miles McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Hart, they really stepped up their game to kind of help, alleviate some of the spacing issues because the spacing issues were terrible. And
Yeah.
Thibodeau, it took him some time to figure out what rotations to run. We were playing two bigs for a while, which did not help the spacing. Randall could shoot, so it was fine playing him alongside Mitch. But when we were playing Hartenstein and Precious Achua side by side, two non-shooters, and then we have Hart who doesn't like shooting threes, even though he is capable, doesn't like shooting them. You got guys that are just non-shooters, and it was really tough on Brunson and just the offense in general. I don't think we're a better team without Randall. Definitely
I
not.
don't either. I don't either.
Because when we made the trade for OG Anunoby and he kind of just clicked everything for everyone, we were looking like a real contender in the Eastern Conference.
Hmm.
And that was with Randall having, you know, not having to just completely ISO every possession. And that is, something that's rubbed a lot of Knicks fans the wrong way. He can be kind of a ball stopper, wants his shots. But once we got OG Anunoby and it kind of just opened up the way we play, opened up the floor, it made him so much more willing to pass the ball and just to play in the flow of the offense more so than just force shots up every possession. So
Hmm.
I don't think whether we in the future upgrade from him and trade him away, that's if it's for a superstar player, yes, we do that. But I
Hmm.
think if we had Randall now, I'd feel so much better about how far we can go in the playoffs than I do currently. Like the Philly series does worry me because of Embiid, obviously, and how good that team was prior to his injury.
Hmm.
I just think the Knicks right now have been playing so well that we can carry that through the postseason, at least against Philly. It's funny you bring up that you take us against Indiana. A lot of Knicks fans were actually didn't want to play Indiana because just the style of play is so hard to stop. Their offense is just through the roof. Even
Hmm.
though Halliburton's been kind of weird. Halliburton, it's funny. Halliburton had a great like month and a half in November and then December, and then
Hmm.
after the season tournament, he kind of fell off. So did the Lakers for that matter. And then he got hurt with like a hamstring injury, and then he kind of hasn't been the same ever since. And
Hmm.
then even though they got Siakam, they didn't really get any better. They're kind of still in the same position they were the whole season,
Hmm.
but just the offense is just so potent, and it's been really tough for the Knicks throughout the season whenever we play them to
Hmm.
kind of control it. So that
Yeah.
was something a lot of Knicks fans didn't want in the playoffs
Hmm.
because we just didn't want to deal with that type of offense. Even though the Sixers have been a great offense throughout the season as well,
Uh-huh.
it's a little, I think, a little easier to contain when it's a little more structured. The Pacers are just up and down, go, go. I mean,
Yeah.
they put up 140 on the Atlanta Hawks, and they're obviously a bad defense.
Yeah.
But it was just stylistically, I think, a team people didn't want to see the Knicks play.
Well, listen, it's like that that's very beneficial in the regular season.
It's a different story, yeah, in the
Game
playoffs.
slows down.
Hmm.
And when you slow the game down, that benefits Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks. And that's why if they played the Pacers, I would have, and especially the way Halliburton's played, you know, I think some teams have come close to it, but usually like those Phoenix Suns teams, the 7 seconds or less, they came close. They had a little
Right.
bad luck, didn't work out for them. But I don't think the Pacers are talented enough. See, I actually think like in a Pacers Knicks series, like it depends how Halliburton's playing, and then Siakam would be the second best player in that series as well. So, but I think you can make an argument Brunson is better than Tyrese Halliburton, especially the way Halliburton's played. I think most people would say Joel Embiid is better, and since now he's compromised, so there's that. So I'm not saying that the Knicks, when you pick someone in a series, you're not
Hmm.
necessarily saying, oh, they're landslide better than
Right.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
This is not a normal 2-7 series that's
this is
usually
not a
very
normal two
predictable.
seven
Yeah.
seed. And even Knicks fans were saying, should we get the 2 seed? Because we're going to play the
Yeah.
winner of
Hmm.
Miami Philly.
Yeah.
And unless the Pacers unless the Philly skipped over the Pacers, it wasn't going to happen.
Hmm.
So you have like, okay, we either play Cleveland, Orlando, Indiana, or Miami or Philly. And I think Cleveland, Orlando, and Indiana, the Knicks would win against those teams.
Hmm.
But I think the Magic would make it a little tough, but like I think they would handle them. I just Do you think Jalen Brunson's a superstar?
I
Or do
think
you think this last month he's just been incredible?
no. I think it's hard to just deny that he is a superstar. I think this
Mhm.
is what he looks like when he's just relied upon completely to be the offense.
Yep.
And this is what it is 30-7 a game. Like
Yeah.
that is superstar. That's on
All
par
right.
with the season Shy's had.
All
It's
right.
on par with other, point guard great seasons, other MVP candidates.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think you can just look at this month and a half or so and think it's just a fluke that,
No, I don't think it's a fluke either, but I mean, we've seen guards have really good months
yeah.
in this
I
league.
mean,
Like, do you
yeah.
think Damian Lillard in Portland is a superstar? I would say no. Is he a
Damian
top
Lillard's
10
in Portland.
in Portland when he was in Portland? Like, he would have moments like this, right?
Was he a superstar? I
Like,
mean,
to me, a superstar is a top 10 player in the league.
okay.
That's what a superstar is to me. So it's a definition. I think that's what a lot of people's superstar thing is. The Knicks fans are used to, I mean, Knicks fans are going to hate me for this. Langston Galloway, Jeremy Lin,
Yeah, I mean,
Raymond Felton, Elfrid Payton. I mean, you guys thought 6-man Derrick Rose was like, oh my, like, so
I remember.
Brunson,
I remember. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just, all I'm
yeah.
saying is Brunson has the ball all the time,
He
especially with
does.
no Randall. And what he's done in the last month is incredible. I'm just saying guards have months like these. Now that 30-7, that's a lot, but there are really good guards in this league. And I think it's really impressive what he's doing with the new way they're officiating the game as well. I think it's
Mhm.
very important. Like that's because look at Harden with the Clippers. It's been terrible.
Yeah.
So Brunson putting these numbers up and they're winning. I think that's a lot. A lot. It's very crucial there. However, Jalen Brunson's not a superstar if they lose in the first round. I'm going to tell you that right now. Either two things are true. He's not a superstar, number one. Number two, they're not better without Randall. I think those are you can if your case to make Brunson a superstar is like, oh no, he's still a superstar even if they lose in the first round. Like they're not better without Randall then
Yeah,
because they should be
that's
able to win in the first round. I'm not picking them, but
right.
like if I was a Knick fan, I would be very disappointed if they lost in the first round, even with Embiid. I'm just saying it.
No, 100%. No,
Um,
yeah, that's
you know, I'm
that's
not
fair.
I'm not trying to be a Knick. Brunson's incredible. Like he's a great player. To me, if you're going to be a superstar, though, I have to know if you're the best player on my team, I got a chance of winning a championship, and I just don't feel that way about Jalen Brunson yet.
Yeah, I mean that's been the kind of the sentiment right throughout the season, the discussions. Like, oh,
Now
can
he has the chance to prove me and several other people wrong. But when people disrespect the Knicks on national media, and I do believe they disrespect the Knicks a lot, I think it's not fair. I think it's because there's this narrative about the Knicks. It's like, haha. Evan Roberts said this on the fan recently. It's like, LOL Knicks. That's what he
hmm
said. Like
yeah,
the Knicks just have this narrative with them that's like, they're the Knicks. They always find a way to lose or embarrass themselves. And that shouldn't matter when you're looking at this year. However, if you have a regular season like Jalen Brunson and you play for a fan base like the Knicks, you're gonna have like, oh, he's a superstar. Superstars come in the playoffs. And if Jalen Brunson makes the conference finals, I will open that discussion. And if he's a superstar, that should happen. But if he loses in the first round, I don't want to hear it.
mm.
Do you
I
think
don't,
I'm wrong? If they lose in the first round, is Jalen Brunson a superstar?
losing in the first round would be bad, but
Mm-hmm.
you did make the case that Embiid is the better player,
I
and
did.
and then they arguably have the second best player and the
Yes,
coach.
you're
So
right.
that's true. So
Mm-hmm.
so can he? I think he can still be in the discussion to be a superstar,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
even if they lose if they get like gentlemen swept. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really bad. That shows
Yeah.
maybe he's not. But if we
All right.
lose in like 6 or 7 to Embiid and Embiid averages like 35 in the series or whatever he was doing
Yeah.
with the injury,
Mm-hmm.
I think we you just tip it to Embiid was the better player. If Maxi
Mm-hmm.
plays well, and you know what, our second best player is OG Anunoby, who's not
Yeah.
necessarily a scorer, and
And there's context to this. Like
Mhm.
Embiid's also lost to Trae Young, who I don't think is a superstar. You know, like I
That's true.
just
That's
to me,
true.
you got to be a top 10 player in the NBA. And I don't think Becky Hammond's an idiot when she says,
No.
I don't believe like little guys, we've only seen Curry, Isaiah Thomas do that,
hmm
really.
Yeah.
Where they're the best player and they're like little dudes. You know, Brunson's an excellent player. I'm not here to like ruin it. I just think they need like one more really good piece. And Randall not playing, yeah, may look good in the regular season, like, but they need a support. He needs another scorer.
Yeah.
And if you think that's just going to be like by committee where it's like Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, and Isaiah Hartenstein and Josh Hart and
Yeah.
Bogdanovich, even though the Bogdanovich Burks has been awful and Bogdanovich has been okay lately.
He's been coming on a little bit the past
Yeah. And he
few
could be
weeks.
a guy that could swing a little bit, but he needs help.
hmm
And yeah, that's true. But to me, I don't look at Brunson like I'm winning a title with that guy as my best player. I just don't. And then to me, that's what a superstar is. Like, I don't think, let me make this clear. Kyrie Irving is not a superstar to me.
mm
Damian Lillard's not a superstar to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like those
hmm
really good guards,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It
I'm
did.
still
Yeah.
on the fringe with like Jimmy Butler, you know? I'm still on the fringe with
I
him.
don't think Jimmy
So to
Butler's
me,
a
like
superstar.
superstar, you're talking like Jokic, you know, those type of guys. That's just me. It's just my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah.
The winner of this series, though, no matter what, Knicks or Sixers, goes to the conference finals to me.
You think they beat
The winner
Milwaukee
of
or Milwaukee and
3-6.
Indiana?
Yes, I think they go to the conference finals. Are there any thoughts with this
Yeah.
series with you?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense because I mean, just Milwaukee, they
Let's
were
get into
19
that.
they went 19 and 20 after firing Adrian Griffin. I mean, that is really bad considering they were 30 and 13. They don't even win 50 games on the season. This team that everyone going into the season we thought would be this juggernaut that would compete with Boston. given the type of player Damian Lillard was, pairing him with Giannis, and just Damian Lillard's season. I know he's had some personal issues off the court that he has talked about that he has to deal with, but he's just had a really bad season. I mean, the numbers look good, but just on a night to night basis, there's games where he's just a complete non factor. And then factor in the defensive problems that they've had over the course of the season, it makes this Indiana series a little worrisome. Like I would not be surprised if the Bucks lose in the first round. I wouldn't be. This is a
No, I
team
would.
that they've played 5 times this season. They're very familiar with each other. Both teams bad defensively. All the games they've played have been very high scoring. When you factor that in with the success Halliburton's had against their backcourt of Lillard and Malik Beasley, it's a series that can easily go 7. I think if Halliburton goes back sort of to this what he was doing earlier in the season, this is a series Indiana can easily win. Because just Milwaukee just finished the season so terribly to have the second seed basically the whole season, and then the last 2 weeks they give up. They had like a 3-game lead, I think, on the whoever the third seed was a few weeks ago, and then they fall down to third.
Mhm. Okay, you influenced me yesterday with this one. I have Indiana winning the series. I have
Yeah.
Indiana winning the series. I don't know if Giannis plays. I don't think Giannis is going to play early on in the series. I think Indiana has the better coach. I think Indiana could possibly have the best 2 players in this series if Giannis isn't playing. And if Giannis does play, I still have him winning the series. This Bucks defense is a disaster, and the Pacers defense is a disaster too, but I trust their coaching more. I don't like the depth of Milwaukee. I have they lost in the first round last year. Pacers got a great crowd themselves. I mean, the Pacers have had their way with them in the regular season, which I just said doesn't always matter, but I
I
think
mean,
in this
four,
case
four
it
out of
does.
5 games is significant.
Yes, I think in this case it does matter. I have the Indiana Pacers winning this series, and I'm not in love with Halliburton,
Mm-hmm.
how he's played. He's clearly compromised, but I don't like the way Lillard's played. So book it. Indiana wins the series. I got Philly beating the Knicks, and I got Indiana beating Milwaukee. And I had the Bucks. People are like, "Oh, you just don't like it." No, I'm not trying to start something. I had the Bucks going to the finals
Yeah, so
before the
did I. We
season
both
started.
we both did.
I am off on this team. Screw this team. I
Yeah.
think, and if they lose in the first round, you're going to start hearing rumblings about Giannis, even though he signed the contract extension. And you start hearing rumblings about Lillard being unhappy there. And you're going to look at Doc Rivers and you're going to be like, what is this team? And Doc Rivers is going to have every excuse in the book. Like, we just haven't had a lot of time to play together, you know?
That's a good Doug Rivers.
I mean, it's hard to take over a team mid-season. Yeah, that whole thing. Like, I don't
he
want to
was he
hear
was
it.
saying that in the introductory press conference. He was saying
I'm
that from
not
the
trying to
get
make
go.
excuses, but yeah, that whole thing. Like,
Jeez, man.
I can't stand Doc Rivers sometimes, the amount of excuses he does. And JJ Redick was absolutely on the money, and Austin Rivers defending him is just whatever. Whatever. JJ Redick played well in Philly without Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers didn't save Redick's career. Doc Rivers is the coach of this Bucks team. Rick Carlisle is the coach of the Pacers team. I just like the Pacers in this series better. Pacers win.
Yeah, I was inclined to feel the same way. That
Mm-hmm.
this is a series the Bucks can easily lose, especially if Giannis. And there was worry that because it was a non-contact injury, they said it was the calf. That there was worry that maybe he hurt his Achilles or something. And I would remind you, Kevin Durant, his initial injury was a calf injury, and then he tried to come back and he ended up rupturing his Achilles. I'm not hoping that happens to Giannis, or I don't think it
Yeah, of
will,
course not. No,
but
of course not.
that's definitely goes into the thinking of, do we force Giannis out there game one? Because I just looked up really fast just what the latest status was of him, and they're showing this real doubt that he does not play to start this
Mm-hmm.
series. And if that's the case, sure, Lillard probably plays better because he can go back to being Portland Lillard with this Milwaukee Bucks team, but it doesn't help their defense at all. And then
Mm-hmm.
now you're relying on, Chris Middleton to come back to what he was 2 seasons ago, which he hasn't had a great season either. He spent some of it injured again.
Mhm.
Um, and then you're relying on like Bobby Portis and Jay Crowder, who they have playing major minutes. Pat Connaughton, like that. Their supporting cast is just not very good. They're also like older. It's just not up and down. Not a great team. I think like most people thought. I thought pairing someone like Lillard with Giannis and the team that they were last season, where they were the first seed, that they were just going to be really good. And I think people underestimated the difference that Drew Holiday made on this team. Cleveland Orlando is going to be the 4-5 matchup. Um, Cleveland threw their game on Sunday, by the way, to get Orlando. They
Yeah.
rested everybody.
Cleveland did?
Yeah, they rested guy. They could have still
Yeah.
got three.
Yeah. And
Um,
guess what? Guess what? They're going to lose that series too because Orlando's beating Cleveland.
oh, you think Orlando's beating Cleveland?
Orlando is beating Cleveland. This
Man,
Cleveland team is not good.
this would be the nail in the
They
coffin.
look terrible. Mitchell's already out of there. I mean, just look at the way they've played. They have a lot of talented pieces, but they just don't fit. Garland and Mitchell's too small of a backcourt. Mobley Allen is too clogged of a front court.
Yeah,
It's just like the collective talent is there. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked if they're better next year trading Donovan Mitchell, not because Donovan Mitchell makes them like,
worse. It's
worse.
just
It's
the fit
just
would
the
be
way the
better.
team is
Yeah,
constructed. Garland will be better without Mitchell, right? But it's not just Donovan Mitchell. They need to figure out the Mobley Allen thing. And I think they may look at moving Allen. So I think, and then when Mobley was out and Garland was out, they were on a tear. And it's not
yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
Mobley makes them worse or Mobley stinks or Garland makes them worse or Garland stinks. It's because Mitchell and Allen fit way better along with the other surrounding pieces they have. This Orlando team, people are looking at them because they're young and whatever. Sometimes with young teams, they don't know any better. And they are well coached. They got players on this team that are not afraid. And I think people aren't really counting it because it's Orlando, nice, cute, whatever. Listen, Cleveland is on the downward right now. And we saw the Cleveland Cavaliers get embarrassed by the Knicks last year. And I think they lose to Orlando. I have 3 upsets in the first round of the Eastern Conference. It's kind of
You have the
crazy.
2, the 3, and the 4 all going down. I Cleveland, obviously, they have had kind of a weird season because they've had stretches where they looked really, really good with certain guys out, like you mentioned. They
Mhm.
had that stretch with just Mitchell playing and Jared Allen, and Jared Allen's numbers were crazy. They were winning defensively. They didn't struggle at all. And then you had time when they all came back and they kind of went back to being this okay team. And then Mitchell was out for a little bit, and Garland looked like the Garland that made the All Star team a few seasons ago. And it's just like you mentioned, it's a great talent. All 4 of those guys are good players: Mobley, Allen, Mitchell, and Garland.
Yeah.
Just together, and then whoever they decide to put at that 3 spot, whether it's a Coro or Max Struess or Dean Wade, whoever they put there, it's just not like a free flowing collection of guys. And Mobley, because he hasn't maybe developed exactly the way Cleveland may have wanted him to, maybe they've wanted him to kind of be able to venture out away from the basket and shoot some mid-range jump shots, some threes. He just doesn't do that. He's not great at it yet.
Yeah.
And with Allen doesn't do it either. So you got these 2 guys constantly in the paint. It it messes with their spacing.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
their bench, I don't think their bench is great. They have Karis LeVert, which is good. Max Struess didn't have a great shooting season percentage wise, not like he did in Miami. It's just not a team that I think has what it takes to win in the playoffs. And then this
Hmm.
Orlando team, not a team that scores a lot. They don't have a lot of shooting, but they play really hard. They defend. They work well together. They all play off each other. Franz and Paolo have had great seasons. I mean, we forget Paolo's a second-year player, and he just
Hmm.
led Orlando to the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think I had Orlando making the playoffs this year.
I didn't have them either. I thought they were too young still, but yeah. I thought they were more like I thought they were like a playing caliber team, but I don't think I even had them there because I thought Atlanta's talent. was more. I thought Brooklyn would be in.
Yeah, and I had questions about their lead guard position. You know, is it Fultz? Is it Cole
Yeah.
Anthony? Is it Jalen
Mhm.
Suggs? And Fultz missed a lot of the season, and they were able, Anthony Black, their rookie, they were able to kind of manage that. And then Wendell Carter missed time as well, and Mo Wagner had a great season. There was just a lot to like with this Orlando team. And they were a team that actually gave the Knicks trouble in the regular season. That was a team I saw people not wanting to play either, even
Mhm.
though they are young, because they're also a defensive team. They play slow. So this is going to be a tough series for Cleveland because Orlando does a lot of things well that Cleveland struggles against.
If you're picking Cleveland in a Cleveland Magic matchup, it's because you're judging off past achievements by the individual players. You're like, Donovan Mitchell, I've seen him play really well.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Garland, I've seen him play really well, all-star, right? Jared Allen, all-star. Evan Mobley, number like Max Strus, that guy was great in the postseason, right? Karis LeVert, I remember him, like all
I
these guys,
remember.
right? Like that's what you're thinking. And it's just like you got a group in Cleveland that clearly doesn't love playing with each other. Clearly. And Mitchell's like already got like 1 foot out the door, it looks like. And then you got Orlando, who's young and really likes each other and got a really good coach, and all vibes are up.
Mhm.
And Orlando's got a good crowd when they're good, man. So give me Orlando.
So we kind of went through the playing games already. We have LA beating the Pelicans, getting that 7, and then
Mhm.
you have Golden State getting the 8. I have
Yeah.
New Orleans getting the 8. So
Mm.
whoever gets the 8 between those two teams, they're going to play Oklahoma City, who were able to snag the first seed. Uh, they had the tiebreaker against Denver, and they won on Sunday. Uh, Second youngest team in the league, led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I think should get real consideration for the MVP. I know everyone's kind of saying Jokic, Jokic, but what he's been able to do with this team, uh, you know, with Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren and just a very young team that I think exceeded expectations this season 100%. I don't think people maybe had them making the playoffs, towards the bottom. Some people were very high on them, but to be the 1 seed and to, be this good, I don't think a lot of people saw. And whether they play the Pelicans or the Warriors, I think they win that series.
I think if OKC gets the Lakers in the first round, I have the Lakers beating them.
Yeah,
But
and
that's about it.
that is
That's about it.
that's the caveat probably.
I have the Thunder taking care of New Orleans pretty easily. Um, New Orleans is talented and could make it interesting, but I just think Oklahoma City, like every argument you're gonna make for New Orleans, why can't you make that for Oklahoma City? It's like they're young, they got a nice talent.
Mhm.
Ingram, it's like, all right, Shea's better than Ingram. It's like, well, yeah, but crowd. OKC's got a great crowd. Okay. Well, Zion, it's like, all right. Chet has played the amount of postseason games Zion has.
Zero.
0. So I I have the Thunder beating the Pelicans or the Kings or anything like that. I also have the Thunder beating Golden State, but I think Golden State could make it interesting because I think Steph could have a few things for Shea. Like, hey, like I'm gonna make this series tough on you. And you got Steve Kerr and Mark Mark Daigneault's never coached in the playoffs before, so I have the Thunder winning that series. Yeah. No matter what, unless it's the Lakers, then I have the Lakers. Then I don't
Mhm.
care about the coaching thing. I just like the Lakers talent,
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody wants to play the Lakers in the first round.
except for the team that they most likely will play, which is the,
Yes,
the
maybe.
Denver
But I
Nuggets.
still don't think they would want to. I think they would rather they play someone else. But
I
yeah.
don't know, man. Denver, they feel it seems like every time I watch Denver play LA, they get up for that.
Yeah.
They get a kick out of it. Obviously, they played last year in the conference finals. Close games, but it was a sweep. I
Mhm.
just, the worries is it's all on the Lakers side. Darvin Ham comes from Budenholzer. He has a lot of his flaws in terms of playoff adjustments, lineups.
Mhm.
Go. Laker fans are tired of him. They want him burned at the stake. Um, you do have LeBron and AD though, and I think if playing them now in the first round instead of playing them later on when LeBron and AD have wear and tear on them, they got to go through tough series because every series in the Western Conference is going to be tough, no matter who you play. Because there was 10 playoff teams in the West, and only 8 of
Mhm.
them are going to make it. These are all really good teams. I think if LA were to have any chance of beating Denver, it would be in the first round because
Yeah.
LA has been hot these past the past month or so. Outside, honestly, the Lakers outside of they had a 3-10 stretch after the in-season tournament. It kind of tanked them in the standings, and they were never able to recover.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they were 44-25, which is a very good team. So
Yeah.
when they have the things together, once they started Rui Hachimura, which they didn't do until January for some reason, they have been a really good team and they've beaten good teams as well. So
Yeah.
I do think, as healthy as they are missing Jared Vanderbilt, which would be very good to have in a series like this. They could have a chance of being Denver. I don't think they will, but I think it definitely be more competitive than it was last season, where they got swept. It's
Mm-hmm.
just Denver has just been so good. Yeah, they're probably disappointed they didn't get the first seed because I think they were really trying for it. But that two-man game of Jamal Murray and Jokic, no matter if you're up 10, if it's close, they know exactly what they're doing in the fourth quarter. Whereas the Lakers, fourth quarter, give the ball to LeBron and pray. And that's just kind of how the Lakers been playing.
Not
And
a bad
LeBron,
plan.
it's not a bad plan. Like 39-year-old LeBron,
Yeah.
you wonder how much longer can he keep this up?
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm with
but
you.
yeah,
I'm with you. I have Denver in the series. I think it's a good one, but I think I have Denver.
very interesting matchup here with Minnesota and Phoenix because we've talked about Phoenix throughout the season. We're not big believers in Phoenix, but they did finish the season good. Well, they were able to get out of the play-in and steal the 6th seed away from the Pelicans. So they'll get some time to rest, get some time to game plan. And Minnesota, whether I think Cat is back, if I'm not mistaken, he
Cat
will
is
play.
back and he played
Cat is back.
terrible in the last game and versus Phoenix.
Yeah, these two teams just played. Phoenix kind of handled them convincingly to
Hmm.
push Minnesota down to 3 and then to take 6.
Minnesota's trying too. Like they were trying to get the 1 seed.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I don't love Phoenix as a team, but I could see it. I could see an upset here just because of the sheer superstar. Well, maybe not superstar to you, but superstar caliber talent on Phoenix's roster with Booker, Beal,
Devin Booker
and
and
Kevin
Durant to
Durant.
me are
Yeah. Okay.
to me.
Yeah. All right.
To me.
Just with that, and then there are question marks in Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, is
Hmm.
he going to be as great as he was in the regular season in the playoffs? Rudy Gobert, we've seen Rudy Gobert in the playoffs. Is he still going to be effective in the playoffs? He's most
Nope.
likely going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think he deserves it. They've been the best defense throughout the season. Will he be enough of a deterrent? And not that Phoenix has a superimposing interior threat. Nurkic is good sometimes, um, but Minnesota, they also have a lack of shot creation, especially with their bench. Those are question marks to me. And Cat will see how well he plays. He hasn't been playing for the past, I don't know how long did he miss, about a month, 2 months. Is that enough what they have to beat a team led by Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who kind of went nuclear last postseason and took 2 games from Denver, who they
Mhm.
were not anywhere near as good as Denver was last season. And Phoenix was dealing with injuries, and they were able to take some games off of
A
Denver.
lot of people had Phoenix in that series though.
That's crazy, though.
No, I know we could say that now, but a lot of people
I
were
mean,
like,
yeah,
"Oh, this is a good series," and you're right. But you know what they also had? They had a point guard,
mm, no point guard.
no point guard, and I think Aiton is better than Nurkic. As bad as Aiton had moments in Portland this year,
I agree.
Nurkic is going to get picked apart.
It was more so like a vibes thing. Like Aiton didn't want to
Yeah.
be there. He signed that offer sheet with Indiana. He was trying to get out,
Uh-huh.
and for whatever
Uh-huh.
reason, they re-signed him. So that was more so that more than
Yeah.
he wasn't good.
Yeah. Well, so do you have Phoenix winning this series?
I have Phoenix. Yes, I think like the series goes the distance. I think Phoenix can win this series.
I have my reasons. I have Minnesota in this series. Number one, I know Phoenix is playing well. I don't
So
really,
what,
I
right?
don't really care. I've seen Durant play in the playoffs the last 2 years, and I'm not impressed. Durant got smoked versus Boston. Minnesota has the ability to push Durant around. They have Edwards, they have McDaniels, they have Gobert. I mean, Gobert probably won't be playing, but Durant could be playing small ball five because that's
That's true.
how
They do that.
horribly constructed
They
this
do
roster
that.
is. They don't have a
That
point
yeah,
guard.
that's a concern.
Grayson Allen's making all his threes in the regular season. Let's see him make it in the playoffs. He was absolutely terrible for the Bucks last year. Royce O'Neal, oh my God, they're doing it. Remember when I said this? I was
Yeah.
like, the Suns are falling in love with Royce O'Neal. He doesn't play great defense in the playoffs, and he doesn't make a shot. So let's see him make a shot.
Make a shot.
Durant, Booker. I don't I don't think Durant lately in the postseason has been better than his regular season. I mean, just look at it. I mean, he just hasn't. I mean, the Clippers were owning the Suns last year, at the beginning, and then Kawhi gets hurt, and then
Yeah, it's
goes
true.
out the window. So this Suns team does not defend. Also, is Frank Vogel a way better coach than Chris Finch? I don't think so. Um, Defensively, I like Minnesota better. Offensively, I like Phoenix better. So that could be the difference.
Now the last series in the Western Conference, Clippers Dallas 4-5 series. This is the third time these two teams will be playing since 2020 in this postseason. Narratively, this is a lot riding on this series. You got the future of the Clippers Big Four. Um, Paul George hasn't resigned. Uh, Harden hasn't resigned, I don't believe. And who knows if they bring Russ back or not. But then on the other side, you have this duo of Luka and Kyrie, and there's been a lot of questions of whether this would work. And you know what? Post All Star break, when they made the trades, got PJ Washington, got Daniel Gafford, they've looked really, really good. And even when one of them misses, or if it's just Luka or just Kyrie, and maybe even the future of Luka as a Maverick is in question if they lose in the first round, and if they lose in embarrassing fashion. Luka has had a ridiculous season. It's crazy he's not going to win the MVP. Just from the numbers perspective, I mean that just speaks to how good Jokic has been, and I think even Shai maybe has a better argument given what he's done with the Oklahoma City Thunder. But Luka averaging what 35, 9 and 9, almost a 35-point triple double. That's ridiculous. And to have finally a season where they're not in the play-in, they missed the playoffs last year. They kind of chose to miss the playoffs last year. Um, they've been really good recently, and I wonder Clippers are going to be playing without possibly without Kawhi, dealing with an injury, with inflammation in his knee. If he has to miss time or if he's not the same,
Is he
we
playing?
I'm not sure. That what I was looking at yesterday was that he has inflammation in his knee and that he needs it to go down for him to be able to play. He can't play with it. Or at least it's just very like painful to play with it. And it's the same knee he's had surgeries on. I think the torn meniscus last season. So that is worrisome. And you look at it like, oh, here we go again with Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Finally, they were having a great season, made that trade for Harden, and they were great. But recently, they haven't been that great. And now with Kawhi injured, and they have a really, this is going to be a tough series against Dallas, given how well they've played, how good they are offensively in Dallas. This is a really, really interesting series
Mhm.
of which team comes out of this. For both teams, it is big, big. It can mean big things for the offseason for both of them.
All right. What do you got? Dallas?
I got Dallas.
If Kawhi plays, I have the Clippers. If he doesn't, I have Dallas.
Hmm.
I think I don't like what I've seen from the Clippers in the last month. However, I kind of never like them going into the playoffs, and they've had like
Yeah,
parts where like they kind of figure it out with Ty Lue there. Like Ty Lue is an excellent playoff coach.
it's tough.
Ugh, it's
It's
tough.
tough.
It's more I don't like what I've seen with the Clippers in the last month. Because other than that, I'd have them easily. Because I'm not a believer in this Dallas team. I never have been. I told you there's going to be moments where Luka and Kyrie look awesome. They still don't defend well. The trades at the deadline have helped them in the second half of the year. I like Lou better as the coach than Kidd. kid is the weirdest coach of all time. He's got moments where he's great and he's moments where like he's just awful. So they need if Dallas is gonna win, they need Kyrie to play very well. And Kyrie really hasn't played well in the postseason really since 21. Well, he
He's
wasn't in the postseason last year.
right.
So that's big. He played well in 21. He still had games where he was bad, but he played well until he got hurt. Didn't play in the postseason in 2020. He had one great game in 22 and it was terrible after that. When that guy goes against length, he stinks. He's not good. So I have my reasons for picking the Clippers mainly because I if Kawhi plays, I just have them. I think Kawhi, we saw it last year in game one. Like when he's healthy, they're a different team. And when it comes to the playoffs, Ty Lue, that combination, I really like them. So I'm gonna still say the Clippers because I think Kawhi is gonna play. But the reason why I don't have the Clippers going farther than the first round is because I don't trust the health of Kawhi. And that's where Dallas has a chance. I'm going to say Kawhi and the Clippers get it done because you're right. They have a whole lot riding on this. And I think Harden got here because he has something to prove, even though he's been terrible. But you're right. If the Clippers lose, yeah, man, the future of Lou, George, and Harden are in question. But I'm going with the Clippers. So it's funny. I have more upsets in the East than the West.
Yeah, I got
Hmm.
I got Minnesota and the Clippers going down,
Yeah.
but um,
Good for you. You may be right.
hopefully,
These are tough. These were tough games.
yeah.
But
The
yeah.
I mean, I think it's going to be really exciting playoffs.
Mhm.
It was been an exciting season. I think there was a lot of
Yeah.
intriguing teams. Even some of the teams that were terrible. Really excited for the playoffs.
Yeah,
It's gonna
really
be
excited.
crazy.
It could be fun.
We're gonna come back in 2 weeks and be like, we said this and it's completely a different way. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that's what happens. All right,
Yeah.
man.
All right. I'd like to thank James Boisits for joining me on this episode of Trueish Hoops. You could catch the JB podcast on YouTube and Spotify. The link will be in the description. I've been on episodes prior. You can check those out too. Uh, thanks for joining, man. Been great.
Awesome, man.